Welcome to Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast. I'm your host, Luke Darnell. We're kicking off National BBQ Month with none other than Mark Lambert with Sweet Swine. Mark has done just about everything in barbecue, winning world championships, creating amazing products, and now he has his own barbecue store. This is a great look at one of the best pitmasters in the country with a lot of great information and tips. Enjoy this podcast with Mark Lambert. This episode is brought to you by the BBQ League. The BBQ League is the ultimate barbecue experience. Here's why. One small annual investment from you instantly unlocks all 70-plus tell-all recipes, enthusiast recipes, restaurateurs, and more in their unmatched library. This isn't your typical YouTube-type content. World champions like Gettin' Basted, Shake and Bake Barbecue, Heavy Smoke Barbecue, La Pasadita Barbecue, and 913 Barbecue share their full tell-all recipes. No secret is left unsaid. And a new video release is guaranteed every single week of your membership. You will also see unfiltered looks from all levels of pitmasters during their live competition coverage. And those same pitmasters are accessible through the League's upbeat online community. As soon as you sign up, you'll also have a full arsenal of some of the best discounts in barbecue from brands like Snake River Farms, Blues Hog, Big Papa Smokers, Gunter Wilhelm, and Gateway Drum Smokers, and more. The BBQ League puts on members-only contests throughout the year, hosts live and virtual events, and offers a full-access league lounge at participating events. Listeners to the OVS Pitmaster podcast can receive $10 off of the annual $100 annual membership this month only by using code, all caps, MAYPITMASTER, all one word, MAYPITMASTER, on thebbqleague.com. So sign up today and up your barbecue game. We're here today with Mark Lambert from Sweet Swine. How you doing, buddy?
Man, having a great morning. It's beautiful and crisp and cool spring morning here, and it's a great day.
It's always a great day when you can talk about barbecue, buddy.
Heck yeah.
You've been a pretty busy boy during COVID. You guys got a bunch of stuff going on.
Yeah, COVID was good to the barbecue business in general. Our business is up about almost 70% from 2020 from 2019. So we were real busy. We didn't get a chance to get out and cook much. We did one KCBS, I think, and it was a local one. Just so many of them canceled, and we had a chance to do San Antonio for the first time in January, and then Houston again before everything shut down last year. And lucky enough to follow up our win in Houston in 19 with a reserve in 2020.
It's always good to follow up success one place with it the next year, kind of.
Yep.
Just give you some personal validation.
Heck yeah.
Well, let's jump into some of these questions I have for you. I think the first time I met you was at World Food Championships down in Orange Beach.
I think so.
One of the things that's always struck me about you is that you have a really good confidence about you when you're at a contest. Where does that confidence come from?
Man, I think just experience and not necessarily having a set recipe or timeline that I feel like I have to follow. And anyone that knows me knows that I have a little ADHD and I'll chase a squirrel around a time or two. But at the end of the day, I can still finish the cook and get stuff turned in on time and do well. So I would say more or less just from cooking experience and kind of knowing what needs to be done and knowing that when adversity pops up and things happen that we know how to adjust and overcome.
So you're definitely more of a field cook instead of a process cook.
Yeah, I'm more of a field cook. Now I have a timeline that I feel like I need to follow. But if I get it on if I put on my meats 30 minutes early or 30 minutes after, I can adjust. I know that I can adjust to make the difference that I need. And I always give myself a little bit of buffer. Of course, you've got rest time, but I generally just am a field guy. I've got don't have to hit all of my numbers to be able to make it work.
That's great. It's something I think that you can only learn from cooking so many contests and putting yourself in those adverse situations so that you know how to handle them. A lot of
Yep.
times on these podcasts, people like to focus on successes. I like to focus on some failures that people have learned from. Do you have any favorite failures of yours?
Whew. Man, I got a bunch. We've been cooking for a long time. Before, a lot of different we always injected, big meats, but that whole process has evolved, in what you inject with and how you inject and how long before. And because, when phosphates came into play in injection, one of my most memorable failures, would say, at a big money contest, actually, and, not understanding how phosphates work and what they do. Well, my process did not involve a wrap, or heavy wrap, just more of a tint, if you will, after you get good color on your pork.
Yeah.
And not knowing that if you don't wrap, it takes forever to get it done. If it extends your stall, so to speak, and not understanding how or why all that works, and not changing my process. Well, I injected with a phosphate and just did it at a contest thinking, oh, it's just injection. What's it going to hurt? If it's not as good, or I won't do it next time. But no. So I injected my pork shoulders at a really substantial contest and just could not get them done. I went to bed with my shoulders in about 153. And I think I woke up, fed them 6 hours later at 163.
Oh my.
And so it was like, uh-oh. And then, I think we power cooked them up at 350 until we got, I think, the hottest one somewhere around 174. And that's, it was in the picnic. And we wound up with 4th place. So that's one of those things. And knowing that you screwed up and working as hard as you can to get there to where you just sort of save face a little bit.
Yeah.
And we actually pulled off a 4th place, not just because of our prowess and how badass we are, but because our little bit of experience in knowing that when our first 2 judges came to visit us, that the first 2 judges were brand new. So it was like, look at this over here, a little sleight of hand and leading those guys that didn't know any better and understand everything to look for. And then we had, one judge that was more of a luck than anything. He was an experienced judge, but we had one shoulder that was the hottest. And we were able to serve him good meat off of the butt end of it. But the funny thing is you normally pull bones for judges, and we didn't pull the first bone, and we got 4th place, and all of our judges come back and gave us their top scores, and we're just like, wow. I mean, no matter what happens, you can still, you got to go for it. You never know what's going to happen.
But that's one of the best things I think about the Memphis Barbecue Network, and the differences between that and KCBS. I'm primarily a Kansas City cook, but I have done a couple of Memphis style categories at some contests, and I really love that on-site judging aspect. I think it gives you, like you just detailed, it gives you a lot of opportunity to do some things and do some gamesmanship if you need to.
Yeah, and you still have to turn a box in, and that's a bigger part of your score. But we're able to go through a couple of shoulders in the back and put together a decent enough box that it worked out. We've had some adversity in KCBS too. I haven't done it as long as MBN or Memphis in May, but we've had a few adversities through KCBS, and having meats not get done, or thinking you're on top of your game, and you wind up with overcooked meat or something. I had one of my coolest stories was I had a guy that is a local cook, and he had a barbecue place, and it's probably not legal or fair, or I don't know what the best way to put it, but I probably broke the rules a little bit. But this guy he had really good barbecue, and he always kind of poor mouthed his barbecue. And what I mean by that, he's like, oh, I'm just a good old backyard pit cook, and I just cook this barbecue, and I think it's good, but I ain't gonna compete against you big guys and this and that and the other. And I told him, I said, man, your barbecue is as good as anybody's. You just don't know how to take it to the box. You don't know how to get it from the whole cut of meat into the box and make it look good and do it quickly so it stays hot. I said, it's just details. I said, you're as good a cook as anybody out here. I said, you do it more than anybody. I can't compete against you guys. And he come by there a little bit later, like real late, and he was poor mouthing again. I said, I'll tell you what, Hot Rod. I said, I'll go to bat with your pork any day of the week. I said, you can't pour mouth. I know how it is. Oh, you can just say that. I said, tell you what, in the morning when your pork's done, I said, you come out here and see me. I said, I'll trade you fair and square. He said, huh? He goes, I said, yeah, I'll trade you. I said, when yours is done, you come by here, I'll give you mine. You give me yours. I said, and I'll show you what you can do. I said, it's just details. And he goes, no, you won't do that. I said, try me. I said, I ain't scared. Bring that stuff over. And I said, now, if it got to be cooked, it's got to be cooked right. And I think, if you do your best, I'll do my best. And that joker brought it over, and I swapped him, and he had the deer in the headlights look, couldn't believe I was going to do that. And I was like, well, what about, I know the guy's a good cook. What do I got to lose? I can do well with his. We wound up getting reserved, but what was the coolest part is when they were calling out pork, that guy, they called out second place, and that guy had, he'd only cooked 2 or 3 contests, and he got second place pork and just was hooping and hollering. Boy, he was happy. He come over and give me a high five. They called out 180 first place pork. It was us. And he looked at me with his jaw on the ground and could not believe it. Just awestruck. And I said, told you. I said, good stuff. I said, I like it. I'm going to take it home to mama.
So much of success comes from that last 10 minutes.
Man, that means everything. That last 15, I'm going to say last 15 to 30 minutes in there, what you do in that little bit, that little stretch means everything.
Yeah, there's always time to make an entry better. That's one thing that I have to tell myself every weekend that I cook is don't panic. Make sure you're tasting everything, and you can always make it better. Are you tasting throughout the whole time?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you're not, that's why you don't want to eat it when it's all over. You've had your fill, and you've had it at its best. And that's why you don't want to eat it any other time, because you've had barbecue at its best throughout right when you turn it in, not sitting in a warmer and not sitting on a plate. And I think that tasting it's imperative. I had a guy a long time ago, I want to say it was Pat Burke actually, that told me, he said, the last thing you put on this is the first thing a judge is going to taste. And that tells you how you can adjust, whether it be salty, sweet, smoky, spicy. You can adjust all those things right at the end, as long as you're prepared to, as long as you're aware and you're prepared to make those adjustments. Last thing you put on is first thing you're going to taste.
Absolutely. And I don't know the answer to this question, so I'm really intrigued about it. But how have your career and life experiences outside of barbecue prepared you to be a pitmaster on the competition trail?
Life experiences, I would say, growing up cooking with my mom in the kitchen, and her teaching me about cooking, and my granny and my grandmother, they were all really, really good cooks. Life experiences, I'm going to say, I worked my way through college waiting tables, and, when people didn't show up in the back of the house, I got pushed to the back of the house because they knew I would always do it for cash, right? So I spent a lot of time not only washing dishes, but, making salads and being a prep cook and a bartender, a grill cook or a fifth man cook or a fry cook. No matter what, somebody didn't show up, they knew they could throw me in it and I would do it. And so I wound up hitting all those different spots in my career, 8 years in the restaurant business. And I filled a spot just about any place in the restaurant business. And I learned a lot about appearance and plating and preparation and, and service, and especially in like Memphis and May or MBN, being able to size up people and figure out how to approach people and how to create rapport quickly and trust. So I think socially, I think the restaurant business did as much for me as, culinary in the culinary side.
That's a great point, especially when you're focusing on a Memphis contest, because there is an art form to that presentation and talking about it.
Right.
You have to know your story before those judges get in the tent.
You got to know your story, and you got to know how to deliver it. And delivery is not the same with every judge. I had some guys here doing a presentation class on Sunday, or Saturday or Sunday, and that was one of the things I think it blew them away, was the fact that we actually size our judges up when we greet our judges. We actually usually try to get our greeter, get a little information about them, how long they've been judging, and if they've been if they're 10 or 20 years, or if this is their first one, or if they only been through a couple, how long they've been a judge, and then know how to tailor the greeting and the process to them so that they feel comfortable. Because if I'm getting real technical to a guy that's been a judge for 20 years, he probably doesn't want that. He's heard all that crap before. What he wants is to taste some really, really good, blow him away with some great barbecue, and be comfortable and have a good time. Whereas, the new guy that just got certified, he's interested in learning all those times and temperatures and learning about stalls and bark and glazes and stuff like that. He may want some technical input, but the other guy maybe not so much. So about making those guys comfortable, just like they're walking into your house, knowing a little bit about something about your guest.
Right. So do you have somebody stationed out there when they walk out?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we did the same thing at the on-site judging in DC. We could see them coming up the line, and I would be staged in the trailer, and the two girls out front they'd check it out, and they're like, okay, you got two women coming, you got an older gentleman who doesn't say much, and the one year we had Meathead was one of our on-site judges.
Okay.
And I looked down the line, and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, this is
going to be tough.
Whole different approach. The girls were like, well, what are you going to do? I was like, well, I can't say 90% of the shit that I was going to say because he probably knows it's bullshit. So, so I had to come at it from a whole different perspective. But we ended up finishing winning pork that day. And because I was like, listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you a bunch of lies about how I had this pig hog raised to, all these specifications. I'm going to give you the straight business. So that's cool. Well, let's switch gears here a little bit and get into some equipment questions, because I know that you have a nice little business down there and you're selling a lot of cool things. What is one of the best or most worthwhile investments that you've ever made in competition barbecue?
I think just I'm going to say probably when we first started cooking a backwood smoker. So we cooked on an old Boot Hill, Missouri Morrow rotisserie for years that I learned from my buddy, and he learned from his dad, and so that was what we started cooking on. And we did okay, but we saw that the guys that were really kicking ass in Memphis and May were cooking on a backwoods. In general, that was the common denominator. And in talking to all the guys, that was what they recommended. And so when we bought our first backwoods, our first contest out, we were immediately second place in ribs. And then our second contest out, we were first place in shoulder and grand champion. It was our first grand champion win. It was just one of those things, knowing that we had a good flavor profile, but we needed a more consistent, better cooker to help us deliver the product. And so I would say Backwoods Smoker was probably that same thing that also got me into the business of barbecue, because at the time you're young and not making a lot of money right out of college, and competition barbecue, as we all know, is really expensive. So I didn't really have the funds to do it, and I wanted to do it. So a few of us decided we wanted to buy them for our house as well. Contacted the manufacturer. I would say I was blessed with the fact that the local dealer had moved out of town, and they didn't have a local dealer anymore. And I pretty much sold him on the fact that I could sell smokers for him, and I did. So I became his dealer in this area, and I started selling smokers to support my barbecue habit. And that snowballed eventually into a barbecue business.
That's fantastic. And are you still on the backwoods, or now are you primarily on the old hickories?
Man, I'm a little of everything. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I cook my ribs typically on my Red Box, which is a backwoods clone. Really, it was the original backwoods. Actually, the first smoker that backwoods ever made was the Red Box, and I bought the rights from them to produce that overseas.
That's right.
And so I cook my ribs typically on a Red Box. I still feel, to me, I make my best pork or ribs on a reverse flow water cooker like a backwoods. So I still use that. I got a Jumbo that I carry around to KCBS. We still cook on, big backwoods at Memphis and May. But if I'm going to go cook an MBN, I'm going to cook on typically I won't cook all the categories these days. So if I'm cooking ribs, I'll cook on them like a backwoods G2 Chubby or something along those lines. So it's still in the repertoire. I use Old Hickory when I have to, cook a little more volume, and that's what it's made for, and that's what it's best at. So when I'm cooking a little bit more volume, I love to have chicken and brisket a little bit more on a drier heat cooker. So
Hmm.
I would much rather cook chicken, competition chicken. That doesn't matter. I still cook with water, but I find my best chicken and brisket comes off a drier cooker. So it might be an Old Hickory or a Jambo.
Right on, right on. It's funny. I've owned all those cookers myself too. it just
Mm-hmm.
it just becomes a kind of a sickness.
Yeah. Oh, tell me about it. I'm afflicted.
Right, right. What were some of the best decisions that you made when you first started competing in terms of gear and stuff like that? And uh, I think this is an important question for people who are getting started.
Kind of like what you do with the meat after you're done with it in a restaurant. I think one of the most important things in a restaurant is being able to hold your meat. So holding cabinets in restaurants, I think when you're in a competition, being able to hold your meat efficiently and good cambro. I mean, not so that you give yourself a little bit of buffer zone and give your meat
Hmm.
time to rest, safe, and keep it hot. So I'm gonna say, we started using cambros instead of we used to power cook at the last minute, and that was our MO. We were always behind when we got up, and we always caught up, and we did well. But there were times that that bit us in the ass. So cambro was a big thing, and again, I'd say backwoods is the same thing. It was our investment that got us over the hump, that made us realize what we were doing could work. We just had to have good equipment, and then once we started getting away from that power cooking the last 3 hours, cambros became a bigger part of it. But outside of that, man, in the way of investments,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
smoker is the most important.
yeah,
You
I
know,
think so.
finding something that you're comfortable with and getting to know it. That
Yeah,
is so important. Just to be able, like I was telling somebody last night, I'm like, you have to have a relationship with your cooker. It's not just, I mean, you have to know that thing inside and out, know how
yeah,
it's going to react, know how you're going to react when it does something. So,
yeah. Because you don't cook in a bubble. Things are different every time. You don't put the same thing in the cooker every time. Meat's different every time you cook. Conditions are different, so you got to be prepared to know your cooker and make adjustments.
yeah. So those are all expensive things. Do you
Yes.
have a do you have a purchase of $100 or less as of something that really, I mean, really helps you improve your game and something like that's something that somebody could go buy today and be like, wow, that's pretty cool. This is really helpful.
Well, I mean, for somebody new, maybe let me grab. I'll show you. For somebody that's new, maybe they don't know. I mean, all the old guys pretty well know this, but um, I see a lot of new guys got these big. I'll put it to you this way. Let me give you a comparison. While the, while these are great for handling really hot stuff around the firebox, right?
Those are big rubber gloves, heat gloves.
Yeah, this is Magna Chef, and they're cool. They get a little magnet on it, so you can take them on, put them on, and they hold together. These are great, and it's just an example of a big, heavy, bulky glove that doesn't give you any dexterity in your fingers.
Yeah.
That's great for that, but a lot of folks try to pull their meat with this, and man, it's okay if you're just doing it for your family because you're just kind of pulling meat. Uh, not a big deal, but if you've got to pull the perfect meat, then you got to have these. And what a lot of people don't understand is how you handle that hot meat, and they look like, looks like you're handling all that meat with just some nitrile gloves on, but a little layer of a
Yeah.
cotton knit glove and then nitrile gloves over the top of that, so that you've got some real dexterity and you can feel and touch and move and adjust, and not have all of this bulky. I feel like you got boxing gloves on trying to build a box.
Right. Yeah, those things. It's one of those things. I think that's funny you brought that up because it made me feel like I've taken those gloves for granted because I've used them the
Mm-hmm.
whole time. And I've seen people watch me just grab meat off the cooker and they're like, how did you even do that? I'm like, I got protection.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
I could,
You gotta
but
be
I could
prepared.
still, I could still feel it, and that's so much of competition barbecue is feel
Yeah.
and using all of your senses to make sure that meat is done and tastes good. Even
One other thing that a lot of people may not use, but to me is essential in my barbecue is the use of food service film and not just foil. So,
okay,
uh, if people in the restaurant business understand cost of goods and food cost and fixed costs and variable cost and how expensive foil is. And while foil is effective, I find many ways to use food service film in addition to foil that keeps things cleaner and really helps my game a lot when it comes to pork. So I like to wrap my money mussels actually with food service film whenever I separate them and put them back on the pit. It really has made a difference in my money mussel game using food service film to help contain everything. Once you take a hot money mussel and wrap it in this stuff, and then insert a probe and then wrap some foil around it to shroud it, when you take it out of the pit, it's blown up. It's got a lot of pressure, and then when it goes to rest, all that pressure goes back down. And my theory is that you're putting some flavor back into it whenever that pressure goes back down. You're cooking out, you're taking moisture out of the meat, and then once it rests, it's gonna come back down, and you wound up with a lot less liquid that you can see in it after it's rested. So film to me is a big deal on my money mussel game anyway.
That's a great tip. It's something I've never tried. That I love it when I learn things on my own podcast.
Uh-huh.
All right, we're going to switch gears now and get into some people. Who has impacted your life the most in competition barbecue?
Man, my buddy that got me into it. His name was Jody Bryant. He was our head cook when we first started working at the phone company, and his daddy taught him about barbecue. And they're from the Boot Hill, Missouri, where barbecue is big. I'm from Southeast Oklahoma, where it's not so big. But moving here, I knew nothing about it. And when I met Jody working together, we started doing hospitality at Memphis in May with the phone company, and learning from him for what he had learned from his dad. And, we used his cooker and learned his methods. And I would say he's the guy that kind of got me most interested in barbecue from the very beginning. We were great friends, and I learned a lot of the base knowledge from him. And then, after that, learned a lot of details from experience. And of course, information was more readily available down the road later on after that. But I'd say my buddy Jody Bryant probably he's the guy that got me into barbecue. And when we started competing outside of Memphis in May, Pat Burke, I would say, was the guy that helped me understand scoring and make sense of scorecards and scores you get back after a contest, and what we're doing wrong and what we need to adjust. And just as a mentor, somebody like that helping me along was huge.
Are those two people still people who you would contact now if you're having trouble with the meat?
Oh, I could contact Pat to this day. Oh yeah, Jody passed away, but I could call Pat in a minute, get feedback from him. We talk every once in a while, not as often as I used to, but yeah, I still feel comfortable calling Mr. Pat and asking, man, I need some help.
It's good to have people like that in this industry. I was doing panic texts on Sunday morning about brisket this past weekend, and I'm like, look, I haven't had a call in 5 contests. We need to figure some stuff out, and got a couple tips and won our table and finished 6th in brisket. So
there's a ton of folks out there now through the competition barbecue family that I feel like I could call and ask questions to. So many different people now. So depending on what category or what type of competition, whether it be KCBS, steak, MBN, unsanctioned, or even we do a lot of we cook these little small mini pot contests and cook all different kind of stuff. So depending on what it is, there's always somebody out there that's a master in that category. And it's good to know there's a lot of those masters.
Absolutely. So we've established that you're not a big process guy, but it strikes me that you probably have some habits and rituals and routines that you've established for yourself around some competitions. You got any of those that are really interesting?
Man, I don't say I really have any routines as it comes to anything really, or I'm going to say rituals outside of Memphis in May. We've been really blessed to win our category 4 times there and overall grand champion twice. And then, we've had, a couple of seconds and thirds and numerous top 10s. So anytime you do well there, you want to try to repeat what you're doing and keep things consistent. But, a lot of it's just to keep things light and lively and have fun with it. And one of the things that we did the first time we ever won shoulders at Memphis in May in 2005, we requested our same spot that next year. Well, we didn't get it. So we were all free. Oh man, we can't believe we don't have our same spot. So to get everybody over the hump and laughing about that kind of superstition, I went over to our old spot when we loaded in, and the guys were back in their trailer into that spot. I had a shovel in my hand. I dug a patch of grass and sod out of the middle of their site. They looked at me like a cow looking at a new gate. Like, what in the hell is this guy doing? And I took that piece of dirt, went over there and dug a divot out and patted it down right under the cooker and said, there, now we're in our same spot. they all looked at me like, you're crazy. And I went, yeah, I know. And guess what? We won shoulders again.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do,
So keep on doing it. So now it's just a joke. There's Lambert going to get his dirt again. It's just one of those things you got to go do now because everybody just laughs about it. But that's really the only superstition, funny thing that we've done. We have a celebratory. We put meat on the grill. When our team's around, there's like 11 of us. So once we get meat on the grill at Memphis in May, we get Darren's got this thing they always had called a clone sickle, where they freeze a bottle of a Gentleman Jack,
Yeah.
And they pass it around. Well, we've created, our sponsor is George Dickel. And so we froze a bottle of Dickel. We have a Dickel sickle. And we pass it around and have a celebratory good luck shot after meat gets on the grill. Those are really about the only two things I can think of off the top of my head. I've got a song that I like to listen to in the morning. My mentor, Pat Burke, had a song that he played every morning, first thing in the morning while he was sweeping up, cleaning up. And he played, "Oh, What a Beautiful Morning." I've got a song that my buddy Brian Lips introduced me to one year. I was cooking with him in Hammond, and it's called the Attitude Dance. Big Bad Voodoo Daddy or something like that, I think is.
Yeah.
And they got a song called the Attitude Dance, and it's just a get your head right song, get you make you feel good. And that's my morning song.
That's great. I'm going to have to look that thing up. Is your competition week, is it the same every week that you're competing? Do you try and do the same things at the same time?
Yeah, typically. I'm glad you said that. I didn't think about that. But yeah, I typically will trim pork butts and briskets on Wednesday and get them back in the bag and get them in their place. And then I will trim my chicken on Thursday and get it back in a vacuum seal bag. I always get all of that stuff done, make my injections. I usually make the injections on Thursday after I trim my chicken and get in. I'll make injections and sauces and get all that ready. And then, just final preparations. Friday, I'll make a list and make a box. And then, of course, when you're laying in bed on Thursday night, you always have a couple of things that pop in. Oh, man, I forgot to get that. So I pull my phone out, send myself a text. And Friday morning, I'll drop those last couple of things in there. That seems like how it always happens. But outside of that, no, that's about it. Just that's how I usually do my trimming to make sure that everything's right and I have time to go and get something else, pick something else up if I need it.
It's super important. I got to cook next to a first-time cook this weekend, and she was trimming meat on Friday and trimming meat on Saturday, and I kind of went over there and I was like, look, you need to get this done before you get here so you can focus on the important stuff and know that you've got what you need. I think that's so
people
important.
Think that a lot of guys that don't know, I mean, they think you got to make your seasonings and sauces and trim your meat on site. I'm like, no, but you can't, and I'm like, yeah, look, here's the deal. You can take anything away from this meat you want to. You just can't add anything to it. They're like,
right.
Oh.
Yeah, and if you show up with 4 pork butts and 2 of them are terrible, then you're stuck trying to go to a store and do all kinds of stuff that you really
you're
don't have
cooking
time
meat you're not used to, or you don't know, how it tastes, or if it cooks different, or if it's bigger or smaller, or if the only thing available is a Costco, and guess what? There's a boneless. My whole thing, and because, like I said, I'm ADHD. There's a lot of squirrels that run around, and it's easy for me to chase them. If I show up on Friday at a contest and I've got everything lined out, I didn't forget anything, and everything's trimmed and ready, and all I got to do is get up and build a fire and cook. Guess what? My cook goes so much better, and I have so much more fun because I'm not scrambling.
Right. That's the worst part of scrambling and looking for ingredients and stuff like that. But
damn it seems like when I'm scrambling, I score better. I don't get it.
feel like you're one of those guys that when the pressure is up, that's whenever the switch flips for you.
If my hair is on fire on Saturday morning, I'll score well. But if I'm kicked back drinking coffee and everything's perfect and the temps and everything are in line and my time, I'll hit all my numbers. Yeah, just seem to not do as well. I don't get it. It feels better, but it just doesn't work out.
That's funny. What's the most surprising thing to come out of competition barbecue for you?
Surprising thing. Well, I guess really it's my profession now. It's what I do for a living. I'd say that's probably the most surprising thing to happen to me. It wasn't a plan. I started, selling barbecue equipment to support my habit, my hobby. Now my hobby is my living. And I feel like that's a blessing to get to do what I love to do for a living. And not only that, but get to write my hobby off. So
there you go.
That shouldn't be illegal, but it is.
I've recently made that switch myself and just getting started in the business side of it. And it's one of those things I was really worried about it becoming a job and not loving it as much.
Yeah. And that was a concern, but it hadn't happened.
Nope, hasn't happened to me yet. And I started a catering company during COVID. So,
no, man, you made a lot of hurdles you already jumped over.
If I can make it through that, Mark, I can make it through pretty much anything, I think.
Got that right.
What do you think's missing from competition barbecue these days? It's definitely changed a lot over the past 10 years.
From a KCBS perspective, I really don't know. I mean, I feel like their process, they're what they do. The only thing I would rather see happen on KCBS, what would be missing is, there's always, if there's a perception that somebody could, manipulate things, then there's always going to be doubt in people's minds. And while there's not really in mine, I know that it has happened when Memphis May used to sanction things. There was some impropriety going because I saw it firsthand and was told about it firsthand by the people that did it. They didn't know that I competed. So, while I don't know how much it happens or if it even does, but the perception that it could, manipulation of numbers is possible. I would like to see it go to kind of like you see SCA or IBCA, where you get a ticket and no one, not even the organizer, knows whose entry is whose. Mm-hmm. And you call out ticket numbers instead of names. That's the only thing to me in KCBS I would like to see changed. Everything else I'm pretty good with. I mean, I think it's a pretty good system outside of, I know they put a number on it when they get it, but they still know how to correlate that number back to a team. Whether it matters or not, or whether any of that kind of business goes on, I don't know. I'm not saying it does, but the perception that it could leaves doubt in some people's minds. And I would rather that not be there. No one have any excuses, and really just to call out ticket numbers personally. In all of it, I'd like to see ticket numbers in all of it. Memphis in May, MBN, just like the rest of it. I think the ticket number is the best way to squash any people's perception that there's impropriety.
That's a good point. I think there's a lot of different ways they could potentially address that, whether it's through QR codes that are specific to each team, or I think there's a lot of different ways to think about it, and I think they're actually looking at some of that stuff. So
good.
I think that's a good thing. Last question before we hit the rapid fire ones, and I'm gonna rewind you a little bit back to the 2016 barbecue awards at the World Food Championships. And this question is around psychological warfare and psyching out your competition. Okay. You guys finished in the top 10 in barbecue that day to go on to the finals. And there was this display on the stage with wrestling masks and all kinds of hooting and hollering. And I think you even got injured, if I'm correct.
I did.
And I remember because we didn't expect to get in the top 10, and we got in the top 10, and then you guys I forget where you finished. And I'm just sitting there looking at the girls going,
who are these clowns?
These guys, man, they are something. So how important is that psychological warfare to you at a competition?
Not at all. We were all jacked up on Mountain Dew, so to speak, and we were just high on life and having fun. And that whole thing came, the masks and all that stuff came from, we go to Mexico every year and cook with the Mexican national grilling team and their grilling competition. And they come to Memphis in May and cook and hang out. And we go down there and teach classes. So all those Mexican guys are really good friends of ours, and we respect them and love those guys. And when they came to Memphis one year, they had these luchador masks, and they wore those masks to the awards, and it was like, we're here. The Mexicans are here. They're proud. Sometimes there's a stigma over Mexicans, but man, our Mexican friends they're excited. They're confident. They're proud. They're happy of their heritage, and they wear these luchador masks to everybody knows who they are, and they're there to play. And they have a ball with it. We had those masks. Hey, let's wear these. Let's wear these to the contest. That's it. The Mexicans will love it. And man, we just put that whole persona on, and just it was more about just fun to do something different instead of things being so serious. It was more of a tension breaker for us. And then when I was running across the street, I tore my plantar fascia in my foot, just like an idiot, running and jumping and like I was 20 again, and hobbled around, for over a year after that, fighting that. And it's still to this day, sometimes it flares up and causes problems. So yeah, I'm reminded, the good Lord reminds me every once in a while, yeah, see, you idiot, that's what you get for showing out.
That was a fun time though. I just remember going, oh my, this just got real.
Oh, there's a bunch of people that got mad at me for doing that. And I was like, come on, man, we were just tension breaker. We were just having fun. And I said, and if you knew our Mexican friends, you know where all this stuff came from. We can't make this crap up.
Well, Mark, I want to thank you for being on here today. Now let's get into the rapid fire questions. I think these are fun, and they give people a little bit of flavor about some of the barbecue people that we have on here. What do you see about barbecue on social media that upsets or bothers you?
Man, on social media, well, I've dropped a lot of those barbecue forums or barbecue groups. I've dropped out a lot of them just because you get people that post up stuff on there and they want feedback, and you give it to them, and then they get butthurt. Yeah. So these little groups they're like, who are you to tell me that? Come on. I'm like, don't put that crap up there. It looks terrible. People think their stuff looks good, and then you tell them it's bad, and then they get butthurt. I mean, that's what I hate about social media. One is that you can't be frank with people that you don't know, and they get butthurt. I like social media. I get to see what you're doing and what people are doing in the Midwest, and I get to see what people in the South all over. I get to see their accomplishments and where they're cooking. I just get to be a part of what everybody does on a regular basis. I love that, but just the negative. And people think that if you're critiquing them, that you're mad at them. People that ask for opinions on social media and get them and are mad about it. That's what I hate.
I tell people all the time anymore, like that. People come over and bring food, and they're like, "Will you taste this?" And I was like, "Only if you're willing to accept what I say." Like, because I'm going to be ruthless. I'm going to be completely honest with you, because number one, that's the only way you're going to get better. And number two, I think we are conditioned to lie about food and tell people that things are good. And it was one of those things. It was the hardest thing for me because we just came out with a sauce. And I said it to a bunch of people, and I'm like, look, I don't need you to tell me that it's good if you don't think it's good. You got to be honest with me and shoot me.
I'm about to invest a bunch of money in this. I need to know.
Exactly. If it's a shitty, I got to know.
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite pre, during, or post-competition meal?
Pre-meal? I mean, I'm a breakfast guy. I love breakfast. I'm talking about good old-fashioned sausage and biscuits and eggs, gravy, and hash browns. I mean, a good breakfast sandwich. So I'm going to say pre-competition meal, if I'm going to a contest, I like to stop and get breakfast somewhere along the way. A good breakfast. And actually, it could be is nothing more than a good sausage biscuit. But breakfast, I would say, is essential for me because I don't eat a lot when I'm at a contest. And then afterwards, man, pizza, Mexican food, pizza, big old salad, something like that. But that's generally about the extent of
anything but barbecue.
And I'm usually hungry because I don't anything but anything off the grill.
Do you have a favorite present that you like to give to people?
I like to give like cured and smoked meats.
Neat.
Yeah, like if I make a batch of bacon or pastrami, or I'll cut it up into some 1 pound packs and vacuum seal it. And buddies that come by, if or for a present, I'll give that. Or I like to make fermented black garlic. I'll people when I see people, I'll carry them and bring them some black garlic or some compound butter I made from it. Stuff like that. Stuff a little different kind of things. Like when I go to Mexico, I get a bunch of different types of seasonings and peppers and salts and herbs and stuff that aren't. It's hard to get around here. And so when I get something unique, I just like to give something extra, something that I like that was interesting enough for me to buy it for myself. And I like to buy a few extras for presents, for gift opportunities, but different stuff that people aren't used to seeing and getting every day.
Very cool. Very cool. If you could have a gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, getting a message out to millions, what would it say and why?
Well, I'm not one to beat my chest. It wouldn't be about me. I would say, if nothing else, I would say it would probably, I am blessed beyond measure in what I've able to accomplish and get through in life, and not being not growing up in the barbecue business and being able to do what I do for a living for fun as well. I would say I don't know, as far as exactly what to say, the words are hard, but I would say I'm blessed beyond measure and don't deserve how good I've got it. So I would say, I feel like while I'm somewhat religious man, I'm not the most. And one of those guys that's not in church every day when the door opens up, I feel like that a lot of my blessings are here because the good Lord gives them to me. And I would say that you're blessed, and that Jesus loves you. And I feel like I couldn't do the things that I've done in my life, and I wouldn't be where I am, I know, without somebody watching over me, because I've been through all kinds of crazy experiences and jobs and near-death experiences, and just no way I get through all that without somebody watching over me. And I would say, Jesus loves you. He's watching. He loves you.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Well, Mark, thank you for being on here. Tell people where they can find you, where they can get some access to your products and see what you got going on.
Yeah. We're, like I said, we're open, every day, 9 to 5. And, I'm going to say 60% of our business is people that come in here. We're out of the way. We're 20 minutes out of Memphis. We're the biggest barbecue store anywhere around here. So we carry things that you can't get anywhere else. So people come and see us. We do a good online business. We'd like it to, we're trying to grow that business outside of the competition world and trying to get in more people's backyards. So that's our focus these days is social media and content and trying to grow our online business. But certainly check us out at ssomd.com and see what we have to offer. And we'd love to take care of you. From, big cookers, we sell a lot of smokers and we ship them all over the country. So a lot of times you feel like you have to travel and drive and load it up in your truck and take it home. We crate them up and ship them up and put them on pallets and put them on big trucks every day around here. So if there's something you need, and we're liable to have it, but if we don't, we can get it for you.
Excellent. Well, Mark, thanks a lot for your time today, and man, can't wait to see you. Hopefully we get down there this summer. Thank you for listening to Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast. Be sure to subscribe and like the podcast, rate the podcast, and to share it with all your friends. Also be sure to check out the Old Virginia Smoke YouTube channel as well. Next week, we continue our National BBQ Month podcast rampage with none other than the genie, Steph Franklin from Simply Marvelous. For companies interested in advertising, please contact Old Virginia Smoke directly via www.oldvirginiasmoke.com. Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast, is edited by Chris Sedenka. Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast, is a property of Old Virginia Smoke, LLC. All rights reserved. Copyright 2021.